Admiral Kira stood on the bridge of her massive warship. The ship was called the Eternal Might, and it was the biggest and strongest ship in the entire Galactic Empire. She looked out through the large windows at the stars around them. Everything looked peaceful and quiet. The Empire had been the rulers of space for 3,000 years. They controlled 12 different star systems. Billions of people lived under their rule. Their home planet was called Nexus Prime, and it was the most beautiful world anyone had ever seen. Golden towers reached up to the clouds. Flying cars moved between the buildings. Everything was perfect. Kira had been an admiral for 20 years. She had fought in many battles and won them all. Her gray uniform had dozens of medals on it. Each medal told the story of another victory against the Empire's enemies. She was proud of every single one. Today was different, though. Strange things had been happening in the outer parts of space. The Empire's spy networks had found unusual energy readings coming from a place no one had ever explored before. The readings suggested that someone new was out there. Someone the Empire had never met. Emperor Deho had been worried about these readings. He was a smart ruler who had kept the Empire strong for 40 years. When he heard about the strange signals, he ordered the biggest military buildup in Empire history. He wanted to be ready for whatever was coming. Kira turned away from the window and walked to her command chair. The bridge was huge and filled with dozens of officers working at their stations. Green lights blinked on computer screens. The sound of quiet conversations filled the air as people did their jobs. "Report," Kira said to her second-in-command. Captain Yoon. Captain Yoon was a young man with dark hair and serious eyes. He had been working with Kira for 5 years and was one of the best officers in the fleet. He looked at his tablet and began to speak. "We have 847 warships in position around the outer rim," Yoon said. "Every ship is at full battle readiness. Our weapons are charged and our shields are at maximum power." Kira nodded. It was the biggest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Each ship was a deadly weapon that could destroy entire cities with a single blast. Their shields had never been broken by any enemy weapon. Their plasma cannons could melt through the strongest armor ever made. "What about the other fleets?" Kira asked. "Fleet Commander Wu Jin has another 200 ships guarding the trade routes," Yoon replied. "Admiral Taesung is protecting the capital with 300 more ships. We have enough firepower to fight 10 different wars at the same time." This made Kira feel confident. The Empire had defeated so many enemies over the years. They had crushed the Crystalline Coalition, whose warriors were made of living crystal and could not feel pain. They had absorbed the Hive worlds, where billions of insect-like creatures had worked together like a single mind. They had destroyed 17 other alien species who had dared to challenge Imperial rule. Each victory had made the Empire stronger. They took the best technology from their defeated enemies and made it their own. Their scientists studied captured weapons and built even better ones. Their engineers learned new ways to make their ships faster and more deadly. "Sir," called out Communications Officer B.O. Ram from her station, "we're getting another energy reading from Sector 77 Alpha." Kira walked over to look at B.O. Ram's screen. The young woman had short black hair and wore thick glasses. She was the best communications expert in the fleet and could understand signals that other people could not even detect. "What kind of reading?" Kira asked. "It's different from anything we've seen before," Ram said, pointing at the strange patterns on her screen. "The energy signature doesn't match any known technology. It's almost like they're using power in a completely different way than we do." Kira studied the display. The patterns were indeed strange. Most alien technology worked in similar ways. They used plasma or laser weapons. They had metal armor and energy shields. They built their ships from the same basic materials that everyone else used, but these readings were different. They showed energy being used in ways that seemed impossible. It was as if the laws of physics worked differently for whoever was making these signals. "Could it be a new type of weapon?" Captain Yoon asked, coming over to look at the screen. "Maybe," Kira said. Or maybe it's just their way of traveling through space. Some species use strange methods to move their ships. She walked back to her command chair and sat down. The soft cushions were comfortable, but she felt a small knot of worry in her stomach. In all her years of fighting, she had never seen energy readings like these. "Admiral," called out Tactical Officer Minsu from across the bridge. "Should we move the fleet into attack formation?" Kira thought about this for a moment. Attack formation would spread their ships out in a pattern designed for battle. It would show whoever was out there that the Empire was ready to fight. But it might also be seen as a threatening move. Not yet, she decided. Keep the ships in defensive positions. If they want to talk, we'll listen. If they want to fight, we'll be ready. The bridge became quiet as everyone returned to their work. Kira looked around at her officers and felt proud. These were some of the best people in the Empire. They had trained for years to serve on the flagship. Each one of them was an expert at their job. The Eternal Might was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Its armor was made from the strongest materials in the galaxy. Its shields could stop any attack that had ever been tried against them. The ship had never been damaged in battle, not even once. Around them, the rest of the fleet waited in space like sleeping giants. Destroyers, cruisers, and battleships floated in perfect formation. Each ship's crew was ready for action. Their weapons were charged and their engines were warmed. Kira had seen many enemies challenge the Empire over the years. They always made the same mistake. They thought they could win because they had some new weapon or some clever strategy. But the Empire always won in the end. They had more ships, better training, and superior technology. Whatever was coming from the unknown sector would learn the same lesson that all the others had learned. The Galactic Empire was the strongest force in the galaxy. No one could stand against them. The Admiral settled back in her chair and watched the stars. Soon, she thought, they would meet these mysterious strangers. The Empire would show them the same mercy they had shown all the others. Join us or be destroyed. Those were the only 2 choices the Empire ever offered, but deep in the darkness of space, something was indeed coming. Something that would change everything the Empire thought they knew about war, about technology, and about what it meant to be the strongest force in the galaxy. The calm before the storm was about to end. The space around the Imperial fleet was empty one moment and filled with danger the next. Without any warning signs or energy buildup, a ship appeared right in the middle of their defensive formation. It was like watching magic happen in real life. Captain Hyenwoo Kim stood calmly on the bridge of his ship, the UES Indomitable. He was a tall man with dark hair and quiet eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His uniform was simple and gray, without the fancy decorations that Imperial officers loved to wear. He had been traveling through space for 18 months to reach this place. The human ship was much smaller than the Imperial vessels around it. It was only 800 meters long, while some of the Empire ships were 5 times that size. But there was something different about its design. Where Imperial ships looked like floating cities covered in weapons, the human ship looked sleek and smooth, like it had been carved from a single piece of metal. "Status report," Kim said in a calm voice. His crew worked quietly at their stations. There were only 312 humans on the entire ship, compared to the thousands of crew members on each Imperial vessel. But every human on the bridge moved with purpose and confidence. Lieutenant Subin looked up from her tactical station. She was a young woman with bright eyes and quick hands that danced across her control panels. "We have 847 enemy ships surrounding us, Captain. They have enough firepower to glass a planet? Enemy ships?" Kim asked with a small smile. "Have they attacked us yet?" "No, sir, but they're all pointing their weapons at us," Kim nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. The Empire always responded to new contact with overwhelming force. It was their way of showing how powerful they were. But humans had been watching the Empire for longer than anyone knew. They understood how these people thought. "Communications," Kim said to Officer Biora, who sat at the station behind him. "Open a channel to their flagship." Biora was an expert at alien languages and communication systems. She had studied Imperial technology for months during their journey. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls as she established contact with the Eternal Might. "Channel open, sir," she reported. Kim stepped forward and looked at the main screen, where he could see the bridge of the Imperial flagship. Admiral Kira sat in her command chair, surrounded by dozens of officers. She looked confident and dangerous, like a predator who had never lost a fight. "This is Captain Kim of the United Earthship Indomitable," he said in perfect Imperial language. "You are blockading a trade route used by our merchant vessels. Withdraw your forces within 1 hour, or we will consider this an act of aggression." The silence that followed his words lasted for several seconds. Kim could see the shock on the faces of the Imperial officers. They had expected many things, but not a polite request to move out of the way. Admiral Kira leaned forward in her chair. Her voice came through the speakers with disbelief and anger. "Did this alien just threaten us?" she asked her officers, not bothering to close the communication channel. "I believe he did, Admiral," Captain Yoon replied, equally shocked. Kira turned back to look at Kim through the screen. "You have 1 ship, we have 847. Are you insane or just stupid?" Kim's expression didn't change. He had studied recordings of Imperial commanders for months. They always responded to challenges with mockery and threats. It was part of their culture to show dominance through displays of superior force. "Admiral Kira," Kim said, using her name even though she hadn't introduced herself. "I'm neither insane nor stupid. I'm simply delivering a message from Earth's government. You have 59 minutes remaining." The fact that Kim knew her name seemed to surprise Kira even more. The Empire kept detailed records of all their military leaders, but those records were supposed to be secret. How could this unknown alien have access to classified Imperial information? "You know who I am," Kira said slowly. "We know many things about your empire," Kim replied. "We know about your conquest of the Crystalline Coalition. We know about your absorption of the hive worlds. We know about the 17 species you've destroyed over the past century." Captain Yoon stepped closer to Kira's chair. "Sir, how is this possible?" "Our intelligence networks are the best in the galaxy." Kim heard the question and decided to answer it. "Your intelligence networks are indeed impressive, Captain Yoon, but they're designed to watch for threats you understand. You look for ships, weapons, and armies. You don't look for individual explorers who ask permission to study your culture." The truth was that humans had been in contact with the Empire for over a year. A single human ship, the UES Wanderer, had approached Imperial territory and requested permission to study their civilization. The Empire had granted this request because they enjoyed showing off their superiority to primitive species. During that year, the human researchers had been given access to Imperial libraries, military academies, and even some government facilities. They had asked thousands of questions about Imperial history, technology, and military tactics. The Empire had answered these questions because they thought the humans were just curious primitives who posed no threat, but the humans had been doing more than just asking questions. They had been recording everything, analyzing every piece of information, and sending detailed reports back to Earth. By the time Captain Kim arrived in the Indomitable, humans knew more about Imperial technology than most Imperial officers did. "This is impossible," Admiral Kira said, but her voice sounded less confident than before. Kim decided to prove his point. Send them the technical analysis." The communications officer worked at her station for a moment, then nodded. "Data. Packet transmitted, sir." On the Imperial flagship, communications officer Bioram looked at her screen with growing alarm. "Admiral, we're receiving detailed technical specifications for our entire fleet. Ship designs, weapon capabilities, shield, frequencies, engine specifications, everything." Kira stood up from her chair and walked over to look at the data. What she saw made her blood turn cold. The humans had complete information about every system on every ship in the Imperial fleet. They knew the exact power output of their weapons. They knew the frequency ranges of their shields. They knew the weak points in their armor design. How did you get this information? Kira demanded. Kim's answer was simple and terrifying. We asked nicely, and you told us everything we wanted to know. Your people are very proud of their achievements, Admiral. They love to explain how superior their technology is to primitive outsiders. The Imperial officers looked at each other with growing worry. They were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. For over a year, they had been teaching potential enemies everything about their military capabilities. They had given away their secrets to people they thought were harmless. You used our hospitality against us, Captain Yoon said. We learned from your generosity, Kim corrected. There's a difference. We didn't steal your information. You gave it to us freely? Kim looked at the chronometer on his wrist. You now have 55 minutes to withdraw your forces. After that, we will assume you intend to attack our merchant ships. Admiral Kira felt anger building inside her chest. No one had ever spoken to an Imperial Admiral like this. No one had ever threatened the Empire and lived to tell about it. Her hand moved toward the weapons control panel. Admiral, Kim said quietly, before you do something that cannot be undone, I suggest you read the final page of the data packet we sent you. Kira looked at B.O. Ram, who quickly found the last page of the transmission. When she read it aloud, her voice shook slightly. We have been watching. We have been learning. This is your final warning. Kim nodded. 54 minutes, Admiral. We hope you make the right choice. The communication channel closed, leaving the Imperial bridge in stunned silence. For the first time in her career, Admiral Kira wasn't sure what to do next. Admiral Kira paced back and forth on her bridge like a caged animal. The human ship floated in space before them, small and alone among the massive Imperial fleet. It looked so harmless, but the knowledge that these aliens possessed detailed information about Imperial technology made her feel sick to her stomach. Time remaining? She asked. 42 minutes, Admiral, Captain Yoon replied. Kira had spent the last 12 minutes studying the data packet the humans had sent. Every page made the situation worse. The aliens knew about weapon systems that were supposed to be top secret. They had detailed blueprints of ship designs that took Imperial engineers decades to develop. They even knew the personal files of most Imperial officers. How many people knew about our research exchange program? Kira demanded. Tactical Officer Minsu checked his records. According to the files, over 3,000 Imperial citizens had contact with the human research team. Scientists, military instructors, government officials, even some civilians who gave them tours of our cities. 3,000 people, Kira repeated. And none of them thought to question why these aliens were asking so many detailed questions. About our military? They were following standard first contact protocols, Captain Yoon said carefully. The humans appeared to be a primitive species interested in learning about our superior civilization. Our people were enthusiastic about showing off our achievements. Kira understood the problem now. Imperial culture was built on the idea that they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. When they met new aliens, they loved to demonstrate their superiority. It made them feel proud and important to show off their technology to primitive visitors, but the humans had turned this pride into a weapon. They had asked innocent questions and received detailed answers. They had requested demonstrations and been given access to classified information. They had appeared curious and harmless while systematically gathering intelligence about every aspect of Imperial military power. Sir, Communications Officer Boram called out, the human ship is transmitting again. Put it on screen, Kira ordered. Captain Kim appeared on the main display. He looked exactly the same as before, calm and composed. Behind him, his small crew worked quietly at their stations. There was no sign of fear or worry on any human face. Admiral Kira, Kim said politely, you have 37 minutes remaining. Have you made your decision? My decision is that you're either the bravest fool in the galaxy or the most dangerous, Kira replied. Either way, you're about to become a memory. She turned to her weapons officer. All ships, target the alien vessel. Prepare to fire on my command. Around the Indomitable, 200 Imperial destroyers moved into attack formation. Their plasma cannons began to charge with deadly energy. Each weapon could melt through solid metal like butter. Together, they carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Kim watched the Imperial ships position themselves with interest. "Fascinating deployment pattern," he said to his tactical officer. "They're using Formation 77 Beta, designed for maximum energy concentration on a single target." Lieutenant Subin nodded. "Just like the manual said they would, sir. Imperial tactics are very predictable." "All stations, prepare for energy absorption," Kim announced calmly. His crew responded with quiet efficiency. Lights dimmed throughout the ship as power was redirected to defensive systems. But these weren't the kind of defenses the Empire was familiar with. Instead of energy shields or thick armor, the human ship relied on something completely different. Admiral Kira raised her hand. "All ships fire." 200 plasma cannons discharged at exactly the same moment. The combined energy release created a wall of superheated death that could have vaporized an entire city. The space around the Indomitable filled with enough destructive power to boil away oceans. The plasma beams struck the human ship and disappeared on the Imperial flagship. Every officer stared at their instruments in disbelief. Their weapons had fired correctly. The energy readings showed that their plasma cannons had released their full power, but the human ship showed no damage at all. "What happened?" Kira demanded. Weapons Officer Jinho checked his readings 3 times before answering. "Sir, our plasma discharge was absorbed. The energy didn't bounce off their hull or get stopped by shields. It was absorbed into their ship's structure." "That's impossible," Captain Yoon said. No material can absorb that much plasma energy without being destroyed." On the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Minho's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, the adaptive armor is responding perfectly. Their plasma technology is actually helping to charge our secondary systems." Kim nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what human scientists had predicted would happen. Imperial plasma. Weapons worked by heating matter to extreme temperatures, but human nanotechnology could convert heat energy directly into electrical power. The hull of the Indomitable wasn't made of metal or ceramic like normal starship armor. Instead, it was constructed from billions of microscopic machines that could change their properties based on the type of attack they faced. When plasma hit the hull, the nanomachines absorbed the energy and used it to make themselves stronger. "Sir," Subin reported, "we're now operating at 130% normal power levels. The Imperial attack has actually improved our combat capability." Admiral Kira watched her instruments with growing horror. Not only had their most powerful weapons failed to damage the human ship, but the energy readings from the alien vessel were actually increasing. Somehow, their attack had made their enemy stronger. "Try the quantum disruptors," she ordered. The quantum disruptors were the Empire's most advanced weapons. They worked by tearing apart the molecular bonds that held matter together. These weapons had never failed to destroy their target. They had broken through every type of armor and shield the Empire had ever encountered. 50 Imperial ships fired their quantum disruptors at the human vessel. Purple beams of energy lanced through space, carrying enough destructive force to reduce a mountain to its component atoms. The beams struck the Indomitable and the ship began to glow. But it wasn't a glow of destruction. It was the glow of absorbed power. "Impossible," Kira whispered. On the human ship, Minho's excited voice filled the bridge. "Captain, their quantum manipulation technology is remarkably primitive. Our nanites are actually learning from their disruptor beams. We're gaining new capabilities with every shot they fire." Kim smiled. "How much energy have we absorbed so far?" "Enough to run our primary systems for 6 months, sir." "These people have just given us the most generous gift in human history." The truth was that human technology worked on completely different principles than anything the Empire had ever seen. Instead of building bigger guns or thicker armor, humans had learned to build smarter. Their ships didn't overpower enemies. They adapted to them. Every weapon the Empire fired taught the human nanomachines something new. The plasma cannons showed them how to handle extreme heat. The quantum disruptors demonstrated advanced particle manipulation. Each attack made the human ship more capable of defending against the next one. "Sir," Subin called out, "I'm detecting stress fractures in several Imperial ships." "Their own weapon discharges are putting strain on their hull structures," Kim nodded. This was another advantage of human intelligence gathering. They knew that Imperial ships were designed to fire their weapons in short bursts, not sustained bombardments. The Empire had never fought an enemy that could absorb their attacks, so they had never tested their ship's ability to maintain continuous fire. Admiral Kira watched in horror as hairline cracks appeared in the hull of her nearest destroyer. The ship was being damaged by the vibrations from its own quantum disruptors. "Cease fire," she ordered. "All ships, cease fire immediately." The Imperial attack stopped, but the damage was already done. The human ship now glowed with absorbed energy, while several Imperial vessels showed signs of structural stress from their own weapons. "Admiral," Kim's voice came through the communication system, "thank you for the demonstration. Your weapons are quite impressive, though not in the way you intended. Are you ready to discuss withdrawal from our trade route?" Kira felt something she had never experienced before in battle. For the first time in her long military career, she was afraid. The Indomitable floated in space like a star that had been captured and tamed. Energy from the absorbed Imperial attacks made the hull glow with soft blue light. Inside the ship, human engineers worked with excitement as their systems operated. At power levels they had only dreamed about before, Captain Kim stood calmly on his bridge, watching the Imperial fleet through his tactical displays. The enemy ships had stopped firing, but they still surrounded his vessel with overwhelming numbers. 847 warships against one. In any normal battle, these odds would mean certain death, but this wasn't a normal battle. Humans didn't fight normal battles. "Engineering report," Kim requested. Chief Engineer Minho's voice came through the communication system with barely contained excitement. "Captain, we have more power than we know what to do with. The Imperial weapons gave us enough energy to run every system on the ship at maximum capacity for months." "Good," Kim said. "Initialize the fabrication protocol." "Sir?" Lieutenant Subin looked up from her tactical station with surprise. "Are you sure? We've never tested that system in actual combat." Kim smiled. "The Empire just gave us the perfect opportunity to test it. Besides, they seem to enjoy demonstrations of superior technology. Let's show them what humans do with excess energy." The fabrication protocol was something completely new in galactic warfare. Human scientists had developed it during their long journey to Imperial space. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Instead of building one incredibly powerful ship, humans had learned to build many smaller ships that could work together. The Indomitable began to change. Along its hull, sections of metal started to extend outward like flowers blooming in fast motion. The absorbed energy from Imperial weapons powered millions of tiny machines that constructed new hull sections in real time. "Admiral," Kira watched through her instruments as the human ship grew before her eyes. "What are they doing?" she demanded. Tactical Officer Minsu checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, they appear to be manufacturing additional spacecraft, using our own weapon energy as power for their construction systems." That's impossible," Captain Yoon said. "You can't build ships in the middle of space. It takes massive shipyards and months of work." But the evidence was right in front of them. The single human vessel was splitting apart, creating new ships from raw materials that seemed to appear from nowhere. What had been one spacecraft became 2, then 5, then 12 identical vessels. On the Indomitable, Minho explained what was happening to his captain. "The nanite fabricators are working perfectly, sir. We're using space dust, cosmic radiation, and trace elements from the solar wind as raw materials. The Imperial energy discharge gave us enough power to convert matter at the molecular level." Kim nodded. Human technology had always been different from other species. While aliens built bigger ships with thicker armor and more powerful weapons, Humans had learned to build smarter ships that could adapt and change based on what they needed. Each new human vessel that formed carried the complete knowledge base that the original ship had gathered about Imperial technology. They knew the exact frequency of Imperial shields. They understood the weak points in Imperial armor design. They had detailed information about every system on every enemy ship, but more importantly, each new ship carried something the Empire had never seen before: countermeasures, specific tools designed to exploit every weakness in Imperial defense. Systems. Tactical, Kim said to Subin. Begin the harmonic analysis. Subin's fingers danced across her control panels. Analysis complete, sir. I have resonance frequencies for all Imperial shield generators. The human ships didn't attack with conventional weapons. Instead, they began transmitting radio signals at very specific frequencies. To most observers, it would look like they were just sending radio messages, but these weren't messages. They were weapons. Every piece of technology has a natural frequency. That makes it vibrate. If you can match that frequency exactly, you can make the technology tear itself apart from the inside. Human scientists had spent months studying Imperial shield generators, learning exactly what frequencies would cause them to malfunction. The first Imperial destroyer lost its shields without warning. One moment the protective energy barrier was functioning normally. The next moment it flickered and disappeared. The ship's captain tried to restart the shield system, but the generators had been damaged beyond repair. Sir, the destroyer's engineering officer reported, the shield generators have destroyed themselves. All the internal components have shaken apart. Admiral Kira watched in horror as shield after shield failed throughout her fleet. Her ships weren't being attacked by lasers or missiles. They were being defeated by radio waves that convinced their own defense systems to commit suicide. How are they doing this? She asked. Fleet Communications Officer B.O. Rem had been analyzing the human transmissions. Admiral, they're broadcasting on the exact resonance frequencies of our shield generators. Somehow, they know the precise engineering specifications of our defensive systems. Of course they did. The Empire had spent a full year explaining their technology to human researchers. Imperial engineers had been proud to describe how their shield generators worked. They had given detailed presentations about the harmonic properties of their energy systems. The humans had listened carefully to every explanation. They had asked intelligent questions and taken detailed notes. And now they were using that knowledge to turn Imperial technology against itself. Within 10 minutes, 37 Imperial ships had lost their shields completely. The vessels floated helplessly in space, protected only by their hull armor. But the humans weren't finished with their demonstration. The next phase targeted Imperial power systems. Each ship in the fleet used fusion reactors that operated according to specific safety protocols. These protocols were designed to prevent the reactors from overloading and exploding. But the humans had learned about these safety systems too. New radio transmissions began broadcasting from the human vessels. These signals convinced Imperial ship computers that routine maintenance was required on their fusion reactors. The safety systems, following their programming exactly, began standard maintenance procedures, but maintenance procedures required the fusion reactors to discharge their excess energy safely. In normal circumstances, this energy would be channeled into special containment systems. However, the human signals had also convinced the ship computers that the containment systems needed to be shut down for cleaning. The first Imperial destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Its fusion reactor had followed its safety protocols perfectly, discharging excess energy just as it was programmed to do. But with no containment system active, that energy had nowhere to go except through the ship's hull. Captain Yoon stared at the expanding cloud of debris where one of their destroyers used to be. They made our own safety systems destroy us, he said in disbelief. More explosions followed as ship after ship fell victim to their own defensive protocols. The humans hadn't fired a single conventional weapon, but they were destroying the Imperial fleet with frightening efficiency. 37 ships down, Subin reported calmly. No damage to human vessels. All systems operating within normal parameters. Kim watched the destruction with professional interest. The Empire builds very sophisticated technology, he observed. Unfortunately, they forgot that sophisticated systems have sophisticated ways to fail. Admiral Kira's flagship shook as another destroyer exploded nearby. She looked around at her officers and saw fear in their eyes. For 3,000 years, the Empire had been the strongest military force in the galaxy. They had never faced an enemy that could turn their own weapons against them. Sir, Minsu called out from his station, the human ships are moving into attack formation. Kira looked at her tactical display and felt her blood turn cold. There were now 43 human vessels surrounding her fleet. Each one was identical to the original ship, but she knew they weren't copies. They were improvements. Every human ship had learned from the Imperial attacks. They had absorbed the energy, analyzed the technology, and incorporated new capabilities into their design. What had started as one experimental vessel had become a fleet of adaptive warships that grew stronger with every battle. Admiral, Kim's voice came through the communication system, you have seen what human technology can do when we're feeling polite. Would you like to find out what happens when we're not? Emperor Deho sat on his golden throne in the capital city of Nexus Prime, staring at the reports coming in from the Outer Rim. Half of Admiral Kira's fleet had been destroyed without the humans firing a single traditional weapon. The impossible was happening. The Empire was losing a battle. Impossible, he muttered, reading the tactical reports for the third time. How can 43 small ships defeat our entire fleet? His advisor, General Sangmin, stood beside the throne with sweat beading on his forehead. Your Majesty, the humans appear to have technology that turns our own systems against us. They're not fighting us with superior force, they're fighting us with superior knowledge. Deho had ruled the Empire for 40 years. In that time, he had never lost a single battle. Every species that challenged imperial rule had been crushed quickly and completely. But these humans were different. They didn't fight like warriors, they fought like scientists. Contact Admiral Kira, the Emperor commanded. I'm taking personal command of this battle. The communication system activated, showing Admiral Kira's bridge on the main screen. The woman looked tired and frightened, surrounded by the chaos of a battle she didn't understand. Your Majesty, Kira said, bowing her head respectfully. The situation is difficult. I can see that, Deho replied. Coldly. You've allowed a handful of aliens to destroy half your fleet, explain. Kira took a deep breath before answering. Sir, they know everything about our technology. Every weapon we use against them makes them stronger. Every defense system we activate, they turn into a weapon against us. It's like fighting our own shadows. The Emperor stood up from his throne and walked closer to the screen. Behind him, the golden towers of the capital city stretched toward the sky. This was the heart of the greatest civilization in galactic history. It could not fall to a few primitive aliens. Then we'll use something they don't know about, Deho declared. Activate the Nexus cannon. A cold silence fell over the throne room. The Nexus cannon was the Empire's ultimate weapon, something so powerful it had only been used once in Imperial history. During the rebellion on the Outer Worlds 50 years ago, the cannon had been fired at the rebel capital system. It had destroyed not just the rebel planets but their entire star. General Sangmin stepped forward nervously. Your Majesty, the Nexus cannon draws power directly from our home star. If we fire it at full power, the star will be weakened. But it will survive, Deho interrupted. The important thing is that these humans will not. No species has ever survived a direct hit from stellar energy. The Nexus cannon was built into the planet itself, with focusing mirrors that could direct the power of their sun into a single beam of destruction. The energy output was equivalent to a controlled supernova. It could melt planets down to their cores and boil away entire atmospheres. Begin the charging sequence, the Emperor ordered. On the Outer Rim, Captain Kim watched his tactical displays. as energy readings spiked throughout the Imperial home system. His communications officer, Bara, looked up from her station with concern. Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildup from the direction of Nexus Prime. Energy levels are off the scale. Kim nodded calmly. They're activating their stellar weapon. Just as our intelligence reports predicted they would. Lieutenant Subin turned around in her chair. Sir, if they're drawing power from their star, the energy output will be enormous. Even our adaptive systems might not be able to handle that much power. You're right, Kim agreed. Our adaptive systems can't handle that much power, but our collection systems can. He pressed a button on his command chair. All ships, prepare. For Energy Absorption Protocol 7, link all vessels into the collection grid. Around the Imperial fleet, the 43 human ships began to move into a new formation. Instead of spreading out for attack, they came together in a precise geometric pattern. Energy conduits extended from each ship, connecting them into a single large network. Admiral Kira watched the human ships with growing dread. What are they doing now? Her tactical officer checked his instruments. Sir, they appear to be linking their power systems together. They're creating some kind of energy collection array. The truth was that humans had been preparing for this moment for months. Their intelligence networks had learned about the Nexus Cannon during their year-long study of Imperial technology. Human scientists had spent that entire time figuring out how to survive a stellar energy attack. The answer hadn't been to build bigger shields or thicker armor. Instead, they had designed their ships to work together as a single massive energy collector. When linked together, the human vessels could absorb and redirect power on a scale that no single ship could handle alone. On Nexus Prime, the charging sequence reached completion. The Nexus Cannon had drawn energy equivalent to 1% of their star's total output. It was enough power to sterilize entire solar systems. Cannon charged and ready, Your Majesty, reported Weapons Coordinator Jin-Wu. Emperor Deho looked at the tactical display showing the human ships in their strange formation. Fire! The beam that lanced out from Nexus Prime was brighter than 1,000 suns. It crossed the distance between star systems in seconds, carrying enough energy to boil away Earth's oceans and melt its continents down to liquid rock. No defense in the known galaxy could stop this much raw power. The stellar beam struck the human collection grid and vanished. For a moment, the space around the human ships glowed like the surface of a star. Energy beyond imagination flowed through their link systems, threatening to tear apart the fabric of space itself. But the human network held together, absorbing every joule of power and converting it into something else. On Nexus Prime, Emperor Deho stared at his instruments in disbelief. What happened to our attack? Sir, Jinwu reported with a shaking voice, the energy was absorbed. All of it. The humans took the full power of a stellar discharge and absorbed it into their ships. The Emperor felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, cold, paralyzing fear that crept up his spine and made his hands shake. The Nexus Cannon was the most powerful weapon ever built. If it couldn't destroy these humans, what could? In the human collection grid, Chief Engineer Minho's excited voice filled the communication channels. Captain, we've successfully absorbed and stored the stellar discharge. All systems are operating within acceptable parameters. Kim smiled. How much energy did we collect? Enough to power Earth's entire civilization for 1,000 years, sir, or... Minho paused dramatically. Enough to build something really impressive. Begin construction of the Retribution, Kim ordered. The absorbed stellar energy began flowing into the largest construction project in human history. Raw materials were pulled from nearby asteroids and space debris. Cosmic dust was converted into advanced metals. Even particles of starlight were transformed into useful components. What emerged from the construction process was a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapon systems that combined human adaptive technology with reverse-engineered Imperial designs. The nameplate on its hull read UES Retribution. Commander Yuna took her position on the bridge of the new vessel. She was Captain Kim's second-in-command, a brilliant tactical officer, who had helped plan this entire operation. Now she commanded a ship that had been built from the Empire's own stellar energy. "This is Commander Yuna of the Retribution," she announced on all communication channels. "Your Emperor just gave us enough power to build a ship specifically designed to end your empire. Surrender now, or learn why humans are the galaxy's most dangerous problem solvers." Emperor Deho collapsed back onto his throne, staring at the massive human warship that had been constructed from his own ultimate weapon. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire faced an enemy it could not defeat. The reign of the Galactic Empire was about to end. The UES Retribution floated in space like a sleeping giant, its 3-kilometer hull gleaming with absorbed stellar energy. Commander Yuna stood on its bridge, surrounded by weapon systems that combined the best of human creativity with stolen Imperial technology. The ship had been built from the Empire's own ultimate attack, and now it pointed its weapons at the heart of their civilization. Admiral Kira stared at the massive human warship through her tactical displays. In less than 4 hours, she had watched a single enemy vessel multiply into dozens of ships, absorb every attack her fleet could make, and then use the Empire's own stellar cannon to build something even more dangerous. "Sir," her communications officer B.O. Ram called out quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different Imperial colonies. They're asking the humans for protection." Kira closed her eyes and felt the weight of 3,000 years of Imperial history crushing down on her shoulders. How had it come to this? How had the greatest military force in galactic history been defeated by a few hundred humans in small ships? The answer was simple, but painful to accept. The Empire had become too confident in their own superiority. They had spent so long defeating enemies with brute force that they had forgotten how to fight against intelligence. Captain Kim's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional as always. "Admiral Kira, I believe we have proven our point. Your fleet is defeated, your ultimate weapon has failed, and your colonies are requesting our protection. Will you surrender, or do we need to continue this demonstration?" Kira looked around at her bridge crew. These were good people who had served the Empire faithfully their entire lives. They didn't deserve to die because their leaders had made terrible mistakes. "What are your terms?" she asked quietly. Kim appeared on the main screen, his expression serious but not cruel. "Unconditional surrender of all Imperial military forces. Your Emperor will step down from power immediately. Your government will be dissolved and replaced with a democratic system chosen by your people. And if we refuse?" Kim's answer was simple and terrifying. "Then we will demonstrate what the Retribution was designed to do." As if to emphasize his point, the massive human warship began to charge its weapons. Energy readings spiked throughout the system as the vessel prepared to unleash power equivalent to several stellar discharges. The ship had been built specifically to destroy the Empire, and it carried enough firepower to reduce entire planets to cosmic dust. Emperor Deho watched the proceedings from his throne room, surrounded by advisors who could offer no solutions. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated by superior intelligence and adaptive technology. There was no shame in losing to a better enemy, but it was still the end of everything he had worked for. "Your Majesty, General," Sang Nin said quietly, "perhaps it would be best to accept their terms. Our people don't need to die for our mistakes." The Emperor nodded slowly. For 40 years he had ruled with absolute power, but he had also tried to be a good leader for his people. If surrender meant that billions of Imperial citizens would live, then surrender was the right choice. "Admiral Kira," he said through the communication system, "I hereby order the complete and unconditional surrender of all Imperial forces. The humans have won." The formal surrender took place 3 hours later aboard the Imperial flagship Eternal Might. Captain Kim, Commander Yuna, and a small group of human officers met with the surviving Imperial leadership in the ship's main conference room. Admiral Kira knelt before Captain Kim, offering her ceremonial sword as a symbol of defeat. Behind her, Fleet Commander Wu Jin and dozens of other Imperial officers waited to learn their fate. Kim accepted the sword but immediately handed it back to Kira. "Keep your weapon, Admiral. You'll need it to help maintain order during the transition." This surprised the Imperial officers. In their experience, conquering armies usually executed or imprisoned the defeated leadership. But the humans seemed to have different plans. "Your empire ends today," Kim announced, "but your species doesn't have to suffer. Humans don't conquer for the sake of conquest. We integrate. Your people will be given a choice: join the growing human alliance as equals, or be relocated to reservation worlds where you can maintain your traditional ways." Emperor Deho, who had been brought to the flagship under guard, looked up from his position on the floor. "Why are you being merciful? We would have shown no mercy to you." Kim considered this question carefully before answering. "Your species made the mistake of thinking that might makes right. But humans learned long ago that the strongest civilizations are built on cooperation, not domination. We don't want to rule over you. We want to work with you." The truth was that humans had studied Imperial society for over a year, and they understood that most Imperial citizens were good people trapped in a bad system. The Empire's government was corrupt and militaristic, but the common people just wanted to live peaceful lives and raise their families. Commander Yuna stepped forward. "Your scientists, engineers, and artists will be welcomed into human society with full rights and privileges. Your military officers will be given the chance to serve in our peacekeeping forces. Your political leaders," she paused and looked directly at the Emperor, "will be given comfortable retirement on worlds of their choosing." Over the following weeks, the transformation of Imperial space proceeded smoothly. Most Imperial citizens welcomed their new human administrators who brought with them advanced technology and democratic principles. The harsh military rule of the Empire was replaced with local governments chosen by free elections. Some Imperial worlds chose to join the Human Alliance completely, adopting human technology and becoming full members of Earth's growing interstellar community. Others preferred to maintain their traditional cultures while accepting human protection and trade agreements. Admiral Kira found herself working closely with human military advisors, helping to convert the Imperial fleet into a peacekeeping force. Many of her former officers chose to continue their military careers under human command, learning new tactics that emphasized protection rather than conquest. 6 months after the surrender, former Imperial worlds were reporting technological advances that surpassed millennia of previous development. Human scientists shared their knowledge freely, teaching alien researchers how to build adaptive technology and sustainable energy systems. Captain Kim stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at a former Imperial shipyard that was now producing human-designed vessels. The ships being built were not weapons of war, but exploration vessels and merchant ships that would carry trade and knowledge throughout the galaxy. "Status report," he said to Lieutenant Subin, who had been promoted to commander after the successful mission. "All former Imperial systems are reporting stable governments and growing economies," Subin replied. "Crime rates are down, education levels are up, and we've had no major conflicts in 3 months." Kim nodded with satisfaction. This was what humans did best. They didn't just defeat their enemies, they turned their enemies into friends. The communication system activated, showing the face of Admiral Kira on the main screen. She looked healthier and happier than she had during the war, wearing the blue uniform of the new peacekeeping force. "Captain Kim," she said with respect, "I wanted to thank you for giving us a second chance. My people are happier now than they ever were under the Empire." "You earned that second chance, Admiral," Kim replied. "Your people were never our enemies. Your government was." As the communication ended, Kim reflected on the lesson that the galaxy was slowly learning. The Empire had fallen not because humans had bigger guns or thicker armor, but because they had something more dangerous than any weapon. They had the ability to turn every problem into an opportunity, every enemy into an ally, and every defeat into a victory. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched the transformation of Imperial space with growing interest. Some prepared for war, convinced that humans would eventually come for them too. Others sent diplomatic messages, hoping to negotiate peaceful relationships with this new power, but the wisest alien leaders understood the real lesson of the Empire's defeat. The humans hadn't conquered a civilization. They had upgraded it, and that, more than any weapon or fleet, made humanity the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they would destroy you, but because they would convince you to become better than you ever thought possible. The age of the Galactic Empire was over. The age of human cooperation had begun.